Fake HOA cops unleash Plan B on my farm. Goats and neighbors said, not today. Hey everyone, welcome back to HOA Karen Files. If you think the battle with Karen and her gang of fake HOA cops was the peak of drama, well, let me tell you, we're just getting started. I'm Jack Callahan, your storyteller, and today we dive into the next chapter, a story I call Plan B. When the enemy comes back with a bigger wallet and a worse attitude. You helped me take Karen down last time, so keep the support going by hitting that like button right now. It's like a Maggie-style headbutt for the bad guys. Leave a comment and tell me how crazy you think this Plan B is going to get. And don't forget to hit subscribe with the bell so you don't miss a second of this battle. We've got Sheriff Luke, the Chaos Goats, and a brand new black envelope waiting to be revealed. Ready? Let's roll. A month had passed since I sent Karen Whitaker off in a police car, hands cuffed, face red like an overripe tomato. I thought I'd won, like knocking out the final boss in a video game and watching a lovely ending with birds singing in golden sunshine. But this is America, where drama never dies, it just takes a break to level up. I went back to my normal life on Callahan Ranch, the land my family has held for 3 generations, ever since my granddad traded a cow for 50 acres of weed-filled pasture in 1920. Each morning, I'd brew coffee in my dad's dented tin mug, step out onto the porch, and watch the goats laze around the barn like a retired army squad. Maggie, the goat leader with horns curved like scythes, now spent her days chewing grass and occasionally headbutting the water bucket for fun. I swear she missed the days of fighting Karen's minions. Last weekend, my niece Lily came over, a little 8-year-old with messy brown hair and a smile brighter than sunrise over a field. I had promised to teach her how to ride Bessie, the old mare I've raised since she was a foal. Standing by the stable, I watched Lily giggle as Bessie snorted at her hand, and I thought, this is why I fought Karen. So the kid could run free, not be robbed by clipboard-waving men. Even though I'd won the last round, I hadn't given up my habit of checking the fences each morning, not because I feared goats escaping, but because that chill down my spine from the Karen incident still haunted me. I knew somewhere out there, her Plan B from the tablet was brewing, and I didn't plan on being caught off guard again. Tuesday morning, I was tightening barbed wire at the east fence, the one Darren, that backstabbing mole, had once cut, when Lily ran out of the house, holding a small backpack with a superhero on it. She shouted, "Uncle Jack, my teacher gave this to you yesterday, but I forgot to give it." I laughed, wiped the sweat from my brow. "What did your teacher send that had to go through superhero, Lily, huh?" She shrugged and handed me a black envelope, no stamp, no postmark, just my name in white ink, Jack Callahan. My heart pounded. This looked exactly like the envelope I got after the Karen incident, the one I locked under my living room floorboards with a message about Plan B. I patted Lily's head. "Thanks, now go play with Maggie. I need to check this." She ran off, leaving me standing there, hands shaking like the first time I held a hunting rifle. I tore the envelope open, trying to stay calm even as my mind raced through a dozen scenarios from IRS fines to a mafia death threat. Inside was a color satellite image, clear enough that I recognized the goat pen and old oak grove on the south end of my ranch. A red X circled my house, with the note, Alpha Point, failed. Below it were new coordinates, 39.1234, minus 84.5678 to 50 miles from here, along with a typed line. Beta begins 5 out of 12. Prepare or disappear. I frowned, flipped the photo, and saw a small note taped to the back. Callahan, this is your last warning. Don't let the girl pay the price. The girl. They knew about Lily, and the way they sent the letter through her school wasn't a coincidence. This was a threat, not a joke. I grabbed my phone and called Luke, my brother, the county sheriff, the only person I trusted to handle something this crazy. He picked up after a few rings. "Jack, why are you calling this early? Goats eat your mail again." I couldn't laugh. "Luke, I just got another black envelope. This time sent through Lily from her school. They know about her, and there's a new set of coordinates not on my land, but I bet it's someone we know." Luke went quiet for a second, then his voice dropped. "Give me the coordinates." I read them out. 39.1234, minus 84.5678. He typed something, then hissed. "Damn it, Jack. That's Grace Harlow's farm. She called me this morning, said some strangers showed up for a safety inspection, claiming to be from the Midwest Safety Task Force, MSTF. I was about to head over. I felt a chill. Grace Harlow, the 58-year-old who once told me about her fight with Karen's HOA, the one who stood guard with a shotgun to protect her land and her late husband's memory. I said, "Look, I'm coming with you. If this is the plan B Karen talked about, I'm not letting Grace face it alone." Luke replied, "All right, but don't do anything stupid before I get there. I'll pick you up in 30 minutes. I hung up, looking at Lily playing with Daisy by the pin. I didn't say anything to her, not yet, but in my head, I swore, if they dare touch my niece, I'll make them regret ever being born. Luke showed up on time, driving his beat-up patrol car with the scratch from when he crashed into a tree chasing a drunk last year. I hopped in with a giant wrench, not for fighting, just to feel like I had something in my hands. On the way to Grace's farm, an hour's drive from my place, Luke said, "Grace said those MSTF guys weren't like Karen's crew. No clipboards, no cheap suits. They wore gray, had sunglasses, tablets, and told her to leave for federal safety violations. She kicked them out, but they threatened to return with equipment." I asked, "Federal? Who are they to claim that?" Luke shrugged. "I don't know, but I bet the MSTF is connected to Mason Ridge Holdings, the same people behind Karen. I'm investigating, but this thing is bigger than our county, Jack." We arrived at Grace's farm at noon. She stood at the gate, holding an old shotgun, silver hair blowing in the wind, eyes blazing just like the first time I met her at the county fair. On the other side, 3 men in gray suits stood beside a white SUV, no sirens, but a tiny MSTF logo on the door, a house inside a triangle, just like the one on my first black envelope. One guy, tall and skinny with silver-rimmed sunglasses, was speaking into a walkie. "Mrs. Harlow, under new federal safety regulations, this property is no longer fit for residents. You have 48 hours to vacate, or we begin demolition," Grace shouted. "I've lived here 30 years, since my husband died in Iraq. You have no right to evict me," he replied, monotone. "We have full authority under the Midwest Redevelopment Act, passed last month." I stepped out of the car, stood next to Grace, and stared at him through the gate. "Hey, who the hell are you to call yourselves federal? I've dealt with your type, Karen Whitaker's HOA, and we sent them home packing. Don't try us again." The guy turned to me, smirked. "Jack Callahan, right? We know you. Alpha failed because of you, but Beta is different. This isn't your local game anymore." Luke stepped in, flashing his badge. "If you're federal, show me a warrant. If not, you're trespassing." The tall guy backed off and signaled the others. "We'll return with paperwork. 48 hours, Mrs. Harlow." They drove away, no sirens, no dust, but left behind a heavy silence like a rock on your chest. Grace turned to me, hand shaking on her shotgun. "Jack, they're back because I didn't let them win last time. But this time, they're stronger." I patted her shoulder. "You're not fighting alone, Grace. I'm here, Luke's here, and I'll bring the goats if I have to." She gave a faint smile. "Your goats really do head it hard," Luke added. "Jack, I checked the law they mentioned. It doesn't exist, at least not federally. But if Mason Ridge has money, they could have bought something somewhere. I need time." I nodded. "Then we have 48 hours to get ready. If Plan B wants to play, I'll give them a game." After receiving the second black envelope and finding out Grace Harlow was in trouble with something called the Midwest Safety Task Force, MSTF, I couldn't sit still. I had beaten Karen Whitaker with a herd of goats and my sheriff brother, but this time felt different, like defeating the level 1 boss only to discover there's a bigger one waiting behind a secret door. I loaded the goats into the truck, Maggie, Billy, Daisy, and Rusty, like an untrained suicide squad that only needed grass and a target to headbutt. Grace lived an hour's drive from me, and I wasn't about to let her fight alone, not after she told me how she once held a shotgun to protect her land and the memory of her late husband. I drove down dusty red roads, Dad's old country tunes on the radio, thinking, if this is Plan B, I'm gonna make them wish they'd never written that damn envelope. I arrived at Grace's farm just after noon, sunlight shining on her white-painted barn and the old wooden fence she fixed up every year. I parked near the gate and let the goats down to graze in the yard. Maggie looked up at me like she knew there was work to do. Grace stood on the porch, holding her old shotgun, silver hair tied back, as sharp like the time she ran off Karen's thugs. But this time, the opponent wasn't some cosplay HOA crew in cheap suits. Beyond the fence, I saw 3 men in gray suits, no clipboards, no flashing lights, just high-tech tablets and silver-rimmed sunglasses. They looked like they stepped out of a B-grade spy movie. A white SUV was parked behind them, with a tiny MSTF logo on the door, a house inside a triangle, same symbol from the black envelope. The tall, lanky guy leading them, I call him Sunglasses Guy because of the oversized shades covering half his face, was speaking through a radio. Mrs. Harlow, we warned you this morning. Under the Midwest Redevelopment Act, this land no longer meets federal safety standards. You have 24 hours to vacate or we will proceed with demolition. Grace shouted back, her voice shaky but not weak. I've lived here since 1992, when my husband died in Iraq so you people could feel safe in your offices. Don't talk to me about standards. You don't have the right. Sunglasses Guy replied, voice flat as a robot. We have full authority, Mrs. Harlow. This is not a request, it's an order. I stepped forward, stood next to Grace, hands in my pockets to keep calm. Hey, Sunglasses Guy. I'm Jack Callahan. I've dealt with your kind, claiming to be Karen Whitaker's HOA, and we kicked their asses all the way back to their mamas. Are you the upgraded version? Or just the same guys in different suits? He turned to me, smirking. Callahan, you're the reason Alpha failed. But Beta isn't your game. We're authorized from higher levels than you can imagine. I scoffed. Higher levels? You mean the suits in Washington sipping $20 coffee while I sweat to keep this land alive? Show me a warrant or get lost. He shook his head. The warrant will arrive tomorrow morning. 24 hours, Callahan. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Grace raised her shotgun, not aiming, just a warning. You're not stepping past this gate. Sunglasses Guy motioned to the others, and they began setting up surveying equipment, some kind of red laser scanning machines that looked like props stolen from a sci-fi movie. I didn't wait. I whistled twice, the same goat call I used back in the Karen days. Maggie charged out first, her horns like scythes, headbutting the nearest scanner and sending it crashing into the mud with a loud crack. Billy jumped onto the white SUV's hood and stomped so hard the windshield cracked. Daisy bit through the cable of the second scanner, dragging it around like a leashed puppy. Rusty, though old, joined the fun by chewing Sunglasses Guy's supply bag, scattering papers across the yard. Grace laughed out loud. Your goats are still stars, Jack? Sunglasses Guy yelled. Call them off now. This is federal property. I shot back. Federal property? These are my goats, and they don't like gray-suited creeps standing on my friend's land. The MSTF crew backed off, but unlike Karen's goons, they didn't run. They stood their ground, red-faced, watching thousands of dollars worth of gear get goat-stomped. I thought I'd won this round until a shiny black SUV rolled in from the West Road, dust swirling in its wake. The door opened, and a woman stepped out tall, thin, with fiery red cropped hair, wearing a sleek black suit and Matrix-style sunglasses. No clipboard, no tablet. She just stood there, arms crossed, looking at us like ants under a magnifying glass. She spoke, her voice ice-cold. I'm Veronica Miles, Regional Director of the Midwest Safety Task Force. Callahan, I've heard about your little goat stunts. But this isn't Karen Whitaker's game. You won Alpha, but Beta belongs to me. And I don't lose. I stepped up to the fence, locking eyes with her. Veronica, huh? You're tougher than Karen, sure, but this land's not yours. Show me legitimate paperwork, or leave like the others. She smiled, not Karen's smug grin, but the kind of smile someone makes when they know they're holding the ace. The documents will arrive tomorrow morning, Callahan. But I advise you and Mrs. Harlow to pack up. We're not just taking this land, we're taking this entire region. This comes from the highest level. Just then, Luke pulled in, patrol car sliding next to mine. He got out, badge gleaming. Highest level? I'm Sheriff Luke Callahan. If this is federal, I need to see a judge's warrant, not just fancy talk from a well-dressed stranger. Veronica turned to Luke, unfazed. Sheriff, you'll see the warrant tomorrow. This is the Midwest Redevelopment Act, approved by people beyond your reach. MSTF has emergency powers. Challenge us if you want. Luke pulled out a notepad and wrote. I'll be checking that act. But if you don't have a warrant right now, you're trespassing. Withdraw, or I'll arrest you for civil threat. Veronica signaled Sunglasses Guy and his team. Pull back. We return with equipment tomorrow morning. She gave me one last look. Callahan, you have 24 hours to decide, cooperate, or lose everything. And this time, your goats won't save you. She climbed back into the black SUV, and it sped away, leaving us standing there among broken gear and papers from Sunglasses Guy's bag. Grace lowered her shotgun, panting. Jack, she's not bluffing. They're stronger than Karen ever was. I nodded. Yeah, but I'm not bluffing either. If they want your land, They'll have to go through me and Maggie. Luke picked up one of the scattered pages, a printed email from V.Miles to Mr. Callahan remains a problem. Accelerate beta. Harlow is the first step. Luke frowned. Mr. Same initials as in Karen's email. Mason Ridge Holdings is behind this MSTF, Jack. And if their paperwork's real, we're not just fighting thugs, we're fighting a system. I looked over at the goats. Maggie was chewing on a loose wire like a trophy and said, System or not, I won't let Grace lose her land. If they come back tomorrow, I'll be ready, and this time, I'm bringing more than goats. I headed back to the truck and checked the herd. Maggie looked at me like she knew the real battle was coming. Veronica Miles wasn't Karen. She was colder, more professional, and backed by real money. But I had Grace, Luke, and a herd of fearless goats. I told myself, Plan B wants to play big? Fine, I'll play even bigger. After Veronica Miles and the Midwest Safety Task Force, MSTF, left Grace's farm with a threat to return the next morning, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was scared. I've survived tornado seasons that flattened chicken coops and still came out fine. But because that chill in Veronica's voice stuck to me like flies on goat manure. Beta is not your game, she said. And that email from V.Miles to Mr. that Luke picked up only confirmed one thing. This wasn't just about Grace's land. Or mine. This was a much bigger game, and we hadn't even seen all the pieces on the board. I sat in Grace's kitchen, holding a cup of cold coffee, watching Luke flip through the papers that had fallen from Sunglasses Guy's bag, trying to find a clue before the sun came up. Grace placed her shotgun on the table and sat across from me. Jack, you don't have to stay. I fought Karen's people on my own. I can do it again. I shook my head. Grace, did you see Veronica? She's not Karen. She doesn't yell through a megaphone or stomp like a brat. She's got money, people, and what she calls authority. I'm not letting you face this alone. Luke chimed in, holding up the email. Jack's right. This MSTF isn't a cosplay HOA crew like last time. This email's from Veronica Miles to Mr. Same initials from Karen's email. Mason Ridge Holdings is the thread, but I bet there's something bigger pulling it. He tapped the table. I heard Zach Larson, the county planning director, was suspended last week for taking bribes. If I'm right, he's a link in this chain. I frowned. Zach Larson? That guy who used to go fishing with my dad and brag about his new car all the time? Luke nodded. Yeah, him. I think he signed off fake permits for Karen, and now he may be tied to MSTF. His office is in town. If we snoop around, we might find something. I chuckled, not really amused. Snoop around? You're the sheriff, and you're asking me to break the law. Luke smirked. Not break the law, just do a little safety inspection, like MSTF did with Grace. But I can't go. If I get caught, I'll lose my badge. You, on the other hand, Jack. I looked at him, then at Grace. All right, but I need someone to go with me, someone quick, who doesn't mind getting into trouble. My mind immediately went to Ellie, the 22-year-old who worked part-time on my ranch, always wore her baseball cap backward and sang Taylor Swift while feeding the goats. After Darren's betrayal, I didn't hire anyone new, but Ellie stayed, earning my trust by helping fix fences and even learning how to whistle for the goats. I called her, even though the clock said 1 a.m. She answered, groggy. Jack? Why are you calling this late? Maggie bust the pin again? No, Ellie. I need your help. It's a little crazy, a little illegal, but it's for Grace. Are you in? She was silent for a second, then laughed. Crazy like letting goats chase gray suit guys yesterday? I'm in. I'll be there in 20. Ellie showed up to Grace's farm on her old mountain bike, wearing a black hoodie and a backward cap, looking more like she was about to rob a store than feed livestock. I showed her the email and told her about Zach. I need you to break into Zach Larson's office with me. Luke thinks he's connected to MSTF, and if we find proof, Grace might be able to keep her land. She shrugged. I once climbed into the principal's office window to get my phone back in high school. This should be easy. But if we get caught, you're paying bail. Deal? I said. Luke gave me the office address, a small building on the edge of town, where Zach worked before his suspension, and reminded us. Look for documents, emails, anything with Mason Ridge or MSTF. Don't leave any trace. We drove in silence. The only sounds were gravel crunching under the tires and Ellie softly humming Bad Blood. Zach's office was on the second floor of an old building, its glass door dusty, the sign County Planning Office faded and chipped. I used the massive wrench from the truck to pry open the back door, not too hard. since the lock was rusted like no one had touched it in weeks. Ellie whispered, "You're like a pro, Jack." I grinned. I learned from movies, not real life. We crept inside, flashlight in Ellie's hand scanning stacks of papers and Zach's messy desk. It smelled like old coffee and damp paper, but I didn't care. I needed proof. Ellie found Zach's computer under a pile of fishing magazines and turned it on. No password. What an amateur. She scrolled through emails while I rifled through file drawers. 10 minutes in, I pulled out a thick folder labeled Midwest Beta Project, Confidential. I flipped through maps of the Midwest with 500 acres of farmland marked in red, plans for an eco-industrial hub featuring solar plants, automated warehouses, and employee resorts. Grace's farm was dead center, marked Phase 1, secure before December 31st. Another page listed sponsors, Mason Ridge Holdings. With a signature, MR, I bet it stood for Maxwell Ridge. Ellie whispered, "Jack, come look at this." The screen showed an email from v.miles to maxwell.ridge@mrholdings.com. Callahan is interfering at Harlow. Recommend accelerating beta. May need federal support if sheriff gets involved. Reply from Maxwell. Do it. I've spoken to Senator K. The act will pass before Christmas. Keep Callahan busy. Target the girl if needed. My blood froze. The girl meant Lily, and the envelope sent to her school wasn't random. Ellie stared at me. Jack, these guys aren't kidding. This is DC level, people in air-conditioned boardrooms, not Karen's thugs. I nodded. Yeah, and they're targeting Lily to scare me. Big mistake. I took photos of the documents with my phone, sent them to Luke, then stuffed the physical copies into my jacket. No trace left behind, but I needed this evidence. We left the office, locked the door like nothing happened, and sped back to Grace's. On the way, my phone rang, unknown number, no area code. I answered, growling. Who is this? A deep voice, filtered and distorted, replied. Callahan, you've dug too deep. Stop, or Lily won't make it to school tomorrow. I shouted. Touch my niece and I'll find you, no matter if you're in DC or hiding underground. I'll break your damn neck. He chuckled darkly. 24 hours, Callahan. Choose wisely. Then hung up. I slammed the steering wheel, startling Ellie. Jack, chill. Who was that? I gritted my teeth. They know I'm onto them. They're threatening Lily to make me stop. She was quiet for a second, then said, You're not stopping, are you? I looked at her. No, I'm not letting Grace lose her land, and I'm not letting them scare me. But I need Luke to protect Lily. I called Luke right then, voice urgent. Luke, they just called, threatened Lily. Go to her school, pick her up, take her to my place, and stay with her and her mom. I'm not messing around. Luke replied. I'm on it. You sent me the proof. I'll send it to the FBI if needed. But Jack, if this is Maxwell Ridge, he's got the money to buy the law. We returned to Grace's farm at 3 a.m. Ellie stayed to help stand watch. Grace was still awake, sitting in her armchair with the shotgun on her lap. Find anything, Jack? I placed the folder on the table. Enough to know they want this whole region, 500 acres from here to Kansas, for an industrial zone. Veronica works for Maxwell Ridge, a DC tycoon. They threatened Lily to stop me. Grace took my hand. You can't stop, Jack. This land is all I have. If I lose it, I lose everything I have left of my husband. I nodded. I'm not stopping. But I need you, Luke, and Ellie too. Tomorrow morning, when MSTF comes back, we show them we don't fold that easy. I looked out the window and saw Maggie standing near the barn, eyes glowing in the moonlight like she knew the real battle was coming. Veronica and Maxwell Ridge had money, power, and a fake law. But I had family, friends, and a herd of goats ready to headbutt anything in their way. I told myself, Plan B wants to target Lily? Fine, I'll target their entire empire. December 5th came faster than I expected, like when you know a storm's coming but still get surprised when the wind rips the roof off your barn. After the threat to Lily and the pile of documents from Zach Larson's office, I couldn't sleep, not out of fear, but fury. Veronica Miles and her Midwest Safety Task Force, MSTF, wanted to take Grace's land, mine, and the entire Midwest to turn it into an industrial park for a bunch of DC elites. I was sitting in Grace's kitchen at 4 a.m., gripping a cup of cold coffee, watching Grace check the shells in her shotgun and Ellie tying her boots, ready for whatever came next. Luke had called back at midnight to confirm Lily was safe at my house with her mom, under his and another deputy's protection, but the words, "Lily won't be going to school tomorrow," still haunted me like a knife to the chest. Grace looked at me, eyes blazing despite having stayed up all night. "Jack, are you sure about this? They're not like Karen's people. They have machines, manpower, and money." I smirked. "Grace, I'm as sure as I am that Maggie will headbutt anything that steps on this land. They might be stronger than Karen, but they don't know us." Ellie chimed in, wearing her backward baseball cap. "I don't know how to fight, Jack, but I can run fast. Just tell me what to do." I nodded. "Good. Today, you're our runner." I checked my phone, reading Luke's last message. "I'm prepping an arrest warrant for Veronica for overstepping authority. Don't let them destroy anything before I arrive." I typed back, "Hurry. I'm not waiting." By 6:30 a.m., as the sky began to lighten, the rumble of engines echoed from the West Road, not just 4 or 5 SUVs like before, but a whole convoy, 3 big trucks carrying bulldozers, 2 sleek black SUVs, and a small armored vehicle with a giant MSTF logo on the door. Veronica Miles stepped out of the lead SUV, wearing a sharp black suit, her fiery red hair tied high. No sunglasses this time, her ice blue eyes scanned us like fish caught in a net. She was flanked by over a dozen gray-suited men, not Karen's bumbling clipboard gang, but professional security, earpieces, steel toe boots, and a few with holstered sidearms, not drawn, but enough to raise every hair on the back of my neck. Veronica raised a megaphone, her voice echoing across the valley. "Jack Callahan, Grace Harlow, under the Midwest Redevelopment Act, this land is officially under MSTF control. We have federal authorization, vacate immediately, or we will proceed with forced demolition." She held up a thick folder sealed with a red stamp, looked more legit than anything Karen ever waved around. Grace stepped to the fence, shotgun slung over her shoulder. "Federal orders? I'm not going anywhere. This is my land, and I'll shoot anyone who steps past that gate." Veronica gave a cold smirk. "Mrs. Harlow, do you really think you can shoot your way through this entire team?" "Callahan, I thought you were smarter. Back off, for your niece's sake." I walked forward to stand beside Grace, arms crossed. "Mention Lily one more time, Veronica, and you won't be walking out of here in one piece. Is that order real, or just another forged stunt like Karen's?" She tossed the file over the fence. I caught it and flipped through. A federal judge in Ohio had signed it, official seal, dated 3 days ago. My gut twisted. It wasn't fake. But Luke said this act didn't exist, so where the hell did this come from? I shouted, "I don't trust papers bought with Maxwell Ridge's dirty money. If you want this land, come through me first." Veronica signaled her crew. "Start demolition. Begin with the barn." I didn't wait. I whistled twice, the goat call they knew. Maggie charged out of the pen like a storm, her curved horns gleaming in the morning light, leading Billy, Daisy, and Rusty. Maggie rammed the nearest guy, sending him flying, his sidearm splashing into the mud. Billy leapt onto a bulldozer's windshield and stomped hard, cracking the glass. Daisy bit through a power cable linking the bulldozer to the truck, yanking it clean with a satisfying snap. Rusty, despite his age, sank his teeth into a security guy's boot, making him scream. "Someone shoot this thing. Get it off me." Grace fired a warning shot into the air. Boom. The sound made the whole crew freeze. "You shoot Jack's goats. I shoot back." "Try me," Veronica yelled. "Stop. Don't let them ruin the equipment." But it wasn't over. Ellie dashed from the porch with a giant bucket, not to put out fires, but to throw straight onto the second bulldozer. Sparks flew, smoke billowed. She shouted, "Who needs a gun when you've got water?" I laughed. "That's my girl, Ellie." The MSTF team scrambled. One guy reached for his sidearm, but Maggie knocked him flat, his gun bouncing away. Veronica stood in the chaos, face burning red, barking into her earpiece. "Calling Team 2. I need backup and functioning equipment now." I thought we could hold them until Luke arrived, but then a different truck rolled in from the East Road, not MSTF. It was Don Wallace, my old neighbor and lawyer. Don jumped out of his battered pickup, hair wild, megaphone in one hand and a folder in the other. "Veronica Miles. I'm Don Wallace, legal representative for Grace Harlow and Jack Callahan. This is a temporary restraining order from the county court. You've overstepped federal authority, and I have evidence Mason Ridge Holdings bribed Senator Krieger to pass a fake act." He tossed the folder, hit her boots. Veronica picked it up, skimmed it, and snarled, "You think this stops me? We have DC support." But Don wasn't done. From the main road, Mrs. Delaney sped up in a golf cart, wearing a floral nightgown, wielding a broom. Hit them, Jack. Show them not to mess with country folk. She parked her cart across the gate and yelled, "You want to get through? Run me over." Then came Sarah and Gwen, the single mom who once lost her land to the HOA. She drove a small truck full of local farmers wielding shovels, hoes, and even lumber. Sarah climbed down, eyes red. "Jack, Dawn told me what's happening. If Grace loses her land, I'll never forgive myself for giving up last time. We fight together." The crowd roared, holding their tools like a medieval army. Veronica, surrounded by goats, lawyers, grandmas with brooms, and a farmer militia, yelled into her earpiece, "Team 2, now. We're surrounded." Then came real sirens, Luke, leading 3 patrol cars, lights flashing. He stepped out, full uniform, holding an arrest warrant. "Veronica Miles, you're under arrest for exceeding federal authority, civil threat, and bribery. I have sworn testimony from Zach Larson and documents from Mason Rich." Hands out. 2 deputies moved in, cuffing Veronica. She didn't scream, didn't fight. She just stared at me, venom in her eyes. "MR will send Plan C, Callahan. You think you've won, but this is just the beginning." I replied, "Bring it on, Veronica. I've got the whole county behind me. What do you have?" She was shoved into the cruiser, but before the doors shut, she smiled, a smile that chilled my spine. The MSTF crumbled. Bulldozers fried. Security retreated when the real police showed up, leaving trucks and gear scattered like junk. Grace hugged me. "Jack, you did it. I get to keep my land. Thank you." Dawn clapped me on the back. "The court's going to look into this. If Mason Ridge really bribed officials, we could topple the whole system." Mrs. Delaney waved her broom. "See, Jack? Never underestimate us country folk." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Thank you for fighting for all of us." I smiled, but it didn't last. Ellie ran over, holding a USB she snagged from Veronica's SUV. "Jack, I found this when they ran. You need to see it." I plugged it into my phone. A video played Lily in her schoolyard yesterday, filmed from a distance. A distorted voice narrated, "Callahan, beta is only the beginning. Plan C targets the entire region, back off, or the girl pays the price." My blood ran cold. I turned to Luke. "They filmed Lily. They know where she is." Luke gripped my shoulder. "I'll send this to the FBI. Maxwell Ridge won't get away. But Jack, you need to be careful, they're not done." I nodded, watching the goats wander the yard, Maggie chewing on another severed wire like a war trophy. I'd won today, but that USB made it clear. The war isn't over. And next time, the enemy will be stronger than ever. After Veronica Miles was cuffed and the Midwest Safety Task Force, MSTF, scattered, defeated by goats, a broom-wielding grandma, our lawyer Dawn, and a bunch of farmers with shovels, I stood in the middle of Grace's yard. Still gripping the USB Ellie had picked up from Veronica's SUV. The smell of burning wires mixed with goat manure, and the morning sunlight cast a glow on Grace's white barn like one of those victory scenes you'd see in a Hollywood film, only dirtier and much more goat-flavored. Grace hugged me again, her voice breaking. "Jack, you saved my land. You saved my memory of Tom." I patted her shoulder. "We saved it together, Grace. And Maggie deserves a medal too." Maggie, the fiercest goat in the herd, looked up from the wire she was chewing, like she agreed. Luke walked over, holding the arrest warrant for Veronica, his eyes heavy with thought. "Jack, I sent the video from that USB to a contact at the FBI in Columbus. If Maxwell Ridge is behind this, he's not walking away clean. But this." He pointed at the abandoned MSTF vehicles. "This wasn't some amateur op. These people have money, manpower, and a system." Ellie, still wearing her backwards cap, chimed in. "Yeah, but they don't have goats or a granny with a broom like Mrs. Delaney." Don Wallace chuckled. "Damn right. I'm taking this case to federal court. Bribing Senator Krieger isn't a slap on the wrist offense." "But Jack, that video of Lily, that's not a joke." I nodded, the cold from that voice, the girl will pay still lingering in my spine. We returned to Grace's house, gathering around the kitchen table, me, Luke, Grace, Ellie, and Dawn to review the USB. I plugged it into Grace's old laptop. The screen flickered, then a video appeared, Lily playing basketball at school yesterday, filmed from behind the fence, handheld and shaky. A distorted voice spoke. "Callahan, beta is just the beginning. Plan C is the entire region, back off, or the girl pays the price. The clip ended on Lily's smiling face, oblivious that she was being watched, and I felt my chest tighten. Luke slammed his palm on the table. Bastards. They're targeting Lily to scare you, Jack. I'll assign more protection. Her mom needs to know too. I nodded. Yeah, I won't let them touch a hair on her head. But I need to know who Maxwell Ridge really is. Luke opened an email from his FBI contact. A short file popped up. Maxwell Ridge, 58, real estate tycoon based in Washington, D.C., owner of Mason Ridge Holdings, a parent company behind dozens of land projects across the U.S. He was once an advisor to the Federal Planning Committee and had connections to Senator Krieger and other politicians. The file noted. Suspected of bribery and land law manipulation. No confirmed evidence yet. I skimmed his photo, a salt-and-pepper-haired man with a square jaw, gray suit, and a smug smile like he knew he was untouchable. Luke said, Jack, if he lobbied for federal laws to grab land here, Plan B was just the pilot. He wants 500 acres from here to Kansas for some eco-industrial park. Grace's land is the keystone. Ellie frowned. Eco-industrial? That sounds like greenwash bull. They want factories and profit, not trees. Don nodded. Exactly. I've seen these scams. They use the word eco to sell it, then build warehouses, golf courses, and luxury staff villas. If Maxwell wins, every farm around here will be concrete. Grace clenched her fists. Tom didn't die so some rich bastard could steal my land. I looked at her. And we won't let them. But I need to do something so they stop targeting Lily. I decided to act, not just wait on the FBI or courts. I called Jake Hensley, a local journalist I'd met at the county fair, the one who wrote about the Karen incident for the town paper. Jake answered. Jack? What now, more HOA drama? Karen wasn't enough? I gave a dry laugh. This is bigger than Karen, Jake. I've got proof Maxwell Ridge bribed his way to steal Midwest land. Documents, emails, video. Will you run it? He paused. Hell yes. Send me everything. If it checks out, the whole state's gonna hear about it. I sent him everything. Photos of Zach's files, Veronica's emails to Maxwell, and the video of Lily, edited to hide her face, but leaving the voice thread in. Jake messaged back. Holy hell, Jack. This is explosive. I'm running it tonight. Brace yourself. The article dropped at 8 p.m. Headline. D.C. billionaires plot to steal Midwest land. Farmers fight back with goats and shotguns. It covered everything from the Karen scandal to Plan B, named Maxwell Ridge, Senator Krieger, and MSTF. It included Zach Larson's testimony. Luke had pushed him to talk to the FBI, plus photos of the classified documents. It spread like wildfire. Locals shared it on Facebook, Twitter, hell, even an Ohio news station picked it up. The next morning, Don's phone rang nonstop. Lawyers from 3 neighboring counties called, saying MSTF had threatened them too. They wanted in on the lawsuit. Don grinned. Jack, you've stirred up a hornet's nest. Maxwell Ridge will face court. The FBI's in now. But I didn't celebrate long. That afternoon, another black envelope appeared, this time slipped under Grace's door while Ellie and I were fixing the fence. I opened it. A map of the Midwest with dozens of red targets. Not just Grace. Not just me. The whole damn region. 500 acres, just like the documents said. Typed message. Plan C, all or nothing. Callahan, you can't stop me. I slipped the envelope into my pocket, hand trembling, not with fear, but rage. Maxwell Ridge wasn't quitting. And Plan C. It was bigger than I imagined, not just one farm, but the entire land I called home. That night, I picked up Lily from Luke's. She ran out and hugged me. Uncle Jack, Mom said you beat the bad guys again. I smiled, ruffling her hair. Yep, me and Maggie. But this time, I need you to be brave, okay? She nodded. Okay. I want to learn to shoot like Mrs. Grace. I took her to the backyard, opened the old gun safe, and pulled out Dad's shotgun, not to fire, just to teach her how to hold it. Lily, this land is ours. If anyone tries to take it, you need to know how to protect it. Like I do. She nodded, eyes shining. I'll protect it like you. And Maggie, too. I stood on the porch that night, looking out over the fields under moonlight. Maggie and the goats wandered near the barn, peaceful, as if no war had ever happened. We had one Plan B. Grace kept her land. Veronica was arrested. Maxwell Ridge exposed. But that final black envelope reminded me the fight wasn't over. Maxwell had money, power, and the law in his pocket. But I had Luke, Grace, Ellie, Dawn, Mrs. Delaney, Sarah, and this whole damn town behind me. I thought of my father. If someone tries to steal your land, make them pay dearly. I'd done it with Karen, with Veronica. And I'd do it again if Maxwell brought Plan C. Living in America, you're told land means freedom. But freedom isn't free. It's not granted by men like Maxwell Ridge, sitting in D.C. offices, sipping $200 wine while drawing maps to steal the land of people who sweat for a living. It's held in your hands, in your blood, and sometimes in a herd of goats ready to headbutt anything that stands in their way. The law can be bought, but not spirit. We are steel forged in hard times, built through battles nobody broadcasts on TV. Maxwell wants this region? Then he'll have to fight an army, not just me, but everyone who calls the Midwest home. I picked up the black envelope and locked it in the steel box beneath my living room floor, not to forget, but to remind myself to stay ready. I looked at Maggie outside and muttered, "You ready for Plan C, Sergeant?" She munched on grass, looked at me, and it was like she said, "Give me the target, I'll charge." And I knew, no matter how powerful Maxwell Ridge thought he was, he didn't understand one thing. Folks like us don't give up. Not ever. I walked back inside, thinking of all of you. Everyone who's followed this story here on HOA Karen Files. If you love this explosive showdown, hit that like button so Maggie knows she's still the star. Drop a comment. What do you think Plan C will look like? Or have you ever faced a Maxwell Ridge in your own life? And if you want to stand with me against the next round of drama, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because I have a feeling Maxwell's not done yet. And I'm going to need my army ready. Thanks for sticking with me. Now go to sleep before the goats tear down the barn.